Welcome in. Game time decisions right here on SportsGrid. It is a Monday night, and I'm Kevin Walsh with you for the next 2 hours going through tonight's slate. Some good NBA, interesting college spots as well, plus the fallout from the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. 4 teams eliminated, 4 more remain. We'll be joined by Joe Lisi, Mike Blewett, helping us digest all of that, setting us up for tonight's card. Coach James Young and Joe Madden, who will be key to helping us find some value on tonight's hockey board. But let's get straight to the action here and open this thing up with the divisional round results. Baltimore dominant 34-10, a cover. The total probably depending on when you bet it. Under in Niners, Packers, Green Bay getting the cover despite the loss. The Lions 31-23 cover, the 2-point conversion deciding that, missed by Tampa Bay. This game going over the total, as well as an over for Chiefs, Bills, and an upset victory by Kansas City, the only dog to come in on this divisional round weekend here. There is so much fallout from all of this, but there is just one exercise I implore you to go through yourself. Perhaps you will find it useless. I find it a bit interesting, but the Super Bowl is around the corner, and with just 4 teams remaining, you can try and find some value in the Super Bowl MVP market. And if you go to these games, who would have won MVP if the games on Saturday and Sunday were the Super Bowl? Lamar obviously would have won it for Baltimore. The Niners, probably Christian McCaffrey, though I have to imagine Dre Greenlaw would have had some considerations. The game-winning pick led the Niners in tackles in the game. Lions, I guess Goff, 2 touchdowns, wasn't perfect. Jahmyr Gibbs had over 100 yards of offense and a critical touchdown in that game. Maybe some consideration. A lot of people would say it has to be Mahomes. 215 passing yards, both touchdowns did go to Kelsey. Isaiah Pacheco over 100 yards and a score on the ground. I think it's interesting. That's all. I think it's a little bit interesting as we have just 4 teams remaining. Our radio audience is here on a Monday night. Appreciate all those stopping by across the network, including Sirius XM Channel 159. I'm Kevin Walsh with you right here on Game Time Decisions. This is the remaining bracket. Both 1 seeds advancing, both 3 seeds advancing as well. Baltimore and Kansas City, San Francisco and Detroit. Lines are available for the divisional round. The Ravens right now a 3.5-point favorite, total listed at 44.5. That 3.5 is 3 in some spots. If you like the Ravens, I would play those 3s now. They're not very expensive. Perhaps 3.5 becomes the key number. If you like Kansas City, I'd play the 3.5s now. Maybe 3 becomes the key number. I do not see this really getting to 4. That would be an absolute stopping point, I think, and it's never getting under 3. It will never be under 3 throughout this week, so consider that when placing your wagers. The weather here in Baltimore, supposed to be pretty kind relative, again, to what we've seen throughout some of the AFC playoffs there. This total at 44.5 could see it get on the move upwards throughout the week. Spinning it over to San Francisco and Detroit. This 7 here on the Niners is easy to find, a 6.5. If you like San Fran, I would react now. Detroit backers, I think, could go with the patience here. While 7 is there, maybe you get more out of San Francisco. Maybe the Ragnow news ends up not being as positive as everybody in Detroit is discussing it. Total at 50.5. They're in the Bay. So the weather not supposed to be a factor in this game. One thing to keep mind of, something that we talked about here on this show before the playoffs started, highest scoring team. The Packers are currently in that position, though they have been eliminated. They sit currently the benchmark at 69. The highest scoring team remaining is the Detroit Lions, unsurprisingly, up at the moment narrowly on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Niners and the Ravens have only played a game. But if you bet either Detroit, which I did, or Kansas City in this market, you only needed to get to this point, with the Niners and the Ravens being capped out at 1 game. If either of these teams in Detroit or Kansas City should get to the Super Bowl, they would have an incredible chance then and would become the favorite to be the highest scoring team throughout this postseason. Just something to keep in mind. Let's bring the Super Bowl odds into the equation here and get a chance to see what the market thinks right now with just the 4 teams remaining. Niners plus 145, Ravens are plus 210, Chiefs plus 350, and then I would say on an island here is the Detroit Lions at plus 700. Incredibly for Detroit, they have already danced with both teams on the AFC side. Different results, though. A 1-point win in the opening week of the NFL, on the opening night, in fact, of the NFL season, 21-20. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. If you remember, no Travis Kelce in that game. Chris Jones was limited as he had a contract dispute that went into really the opening week of football there. Detroit, though, went to Baltimore, and they were absolutely embarrassed. And the Niners welcomed Baltimore in. They were also embarrassed. The Texans just played Baltimore last week. They were embarrassed. There's been a lot of playoff teams this year who have been embarrassed by the Baltimore Ravens. It is fair to question if they actually deserve favorite status right now, but we know the look-ahead lines still have San Francisco favored, and also the divisional round lines factor in with that. The Niners, a comfortable 7-point favorite in their game. Still Baltimore against the defending champs, laying half that number right now at 3.5. Let's bring in your NBA slate tonight. I'm sure that's where a lot of people will be focused. Boston, Dallas looks like game of the night out in Texas. And no Kristaps Porzingis for Boston playing on the second leg of a back-to-back. They were in Houston last night and secured a victory. We also get Joel Embiid against Victor Wembanyama. We will expand on that in a moment through Quick Pick here. Orlando getting healthier. Interested to see what they can do on the second leg of a back-to-back. Played Miami and won big time last night. Milwaukee laying a huge number to Detroit. These teams, last time they just played a couple of days ago. Damian Lillard scored 45 in the game. Giannis narrowly missing out by 1 assist on a 30-point triple-double. And how hot can the Phoenix Suns stay? A 5.5-point favorite on the second leg of a back-to-back tonight against the Chicago Bulls. But let's go to this Embiid head-to-head. And quick pick. First quarter decides it. Joel Embiid over 11.5 first-quarter points. I know it's a lot. I know it puts him on pace for well over 40 points in the game. But Embiid plays the entire first quarter, which is huge. He also has hit this in all 4 games since returning from injury. And this season, when playing a bottom 8 defense, he is 8-5 against the number. Half of the takeaway there, by the way, is that he's already played 13 games and now will play 14th against bottom 8 defenses. It's helped. It's helped. The card is up next. No, it's not. Joe Lisi is right here on SportsGrid.
The Lions were going to blow out the Rams, and in the first half I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game, and I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45. But I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football characters. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Welcome back in. It's Game Time Decisions right here on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh, joined by my Pro Football Today co-host, Joe Lisi. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing fantastic. We got the party over last night in Tampa Bay, Detroit. Great call with the over in Kansas City, Buffalo, because I needed that. I came back with that a little bit late. Sneaky. We needed the Mecole. We needed the Mecole Hardeman in there.
You had chances.
Great.
You had chances. I want to start with this before we move on to conference championship. You believed in Buffalo in the game. I believed in them preseason and tried to believe in them in the game. Here's the thing that I'm struggling with, though, Joe. When we talk about why they lost that game, how would you explain to someone why Buffalo lost that game to Kansas City?
Well, two factors, and I said it all day on radio. One was, I think, an emotional aspect. They just don't believe they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, no matter how good Josh Allen plays from a defensive perspective. They just couldn't step up. The other one was, where's Stephon Diggs? He's like Casper the Ghost now. You can't find the guy over the last 8 weeks of the regular season heading into the playoffs as well. If you're going to go down you go down with your best weapons. That's what Kansas City has done. They've gone back to the quarterback-wide receiver relationship with Travis Kelce. Stephon Diggs, non-existent. I understand he drops the 70-yard pass at about 8 minutes left. You got to go back to the guy. You got to create one-on-one options to go down with your best weapon, and I don't think they did that, Kev.
He had 8 targets. He turned that into 3 catches for 21 yards. I mean, Stephon Diggs, but I mean, target-wise, I hear it, Joe, but he didn't step up at all. And It's been a long time since we've seen Stephon Diggs step up, and that's kind of the thing and the reason I ask you that question is, it felt like it all went wrong somehow, right? I mean, the defense entered that game banged up as you could imagine, and the Chiefs averaged 7.7 yards per play in the game. The fact that they were only held to 27 is almost impressive at that rate. The wide receiver, the help that Mahomes hasn't had all season long, all of a sudden Josh didn't have. The kicker misses the field goal, but also Josh did have some bad decisions down the stretch. Chasing touchdowns instead of yardage. You know, even if he would have hit that touchdown to Khalil Shakir as opposed to that easy check down to Stephon Diggs that could have picked up a first down, there would have been a lot of football left to be played there. It's one of those things where you come away and you go, it just isn't going to be right for this team. And that's we talk about looking ahead, Conference Championship Sunday, Super Bowl, Joe. But I always, when a team loses, all right, what's going to be next year? I don't think I'll be looking for Buffalo Super Bowl tickets at all next season. I think I'll be looking for someone to pick them off in the AFC East for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, you got to look at the Buffalo Bills, Kev, as almost a bell curve, right? Like, so, you go to the pinnacle. Was the pinnacle last year? Was the pinnacle this year? I don't think it was this year. I think they slightly regressed from an offensive and defensive perspective. Now, granted, there were injuries, but they were peaking at just the right time last year and couldn't get it done. So now you look at this team this year, and they regressed. Next year, they're not going to be the front runners potentially. You have young up-and-coming teams in terms of the AFC, teams like Houston with C.J. Stroud, or maybe a bounce-back season from Jacksonville. So the AFC is competitive. Burrow comes back, hopefully healthy with his weapons. It's not going to be easy. They might be still the front runners for the AFC East because of how bad that division is, but overall, they still can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it remains true. How do you feel on a Monday about Kansas City? Now a 3.5-point dog, biggest number of Mahomes' career, I believe, Joe, in Baltimore.
I still have question marks. Now, they ran the football again for $147 on the ground. They did it 2 weeks in a row. If they have that type of effort, they're going to be in this ball game. Again, I still wonder about the consistency outside of Travis Kelce. Is it Rashee Rice each and every week? And can Mecole Hardman make any plays in the passing game? They have to challenge Baltimore over the top at every level. I think they can do it, but I love already the over. That's my best play. I think that Lamar eats in this ball game. I think Patrick eats as well, not just in terms of the air, on the ground. I think both quarterbacks will have success running the football. And I think we're on for a track meet, 44.5. I think this game gets into the 50s.
Yeah, the early look for me is actually this Baltimore defense stepping up in a major way, Joe. But it is Monday, so we'll see. On the NFC side of it, Detroit gets the job done. Jahmyr Gibbs was, I thought, excellent. Amon-Ra stepped up. Goff was hardly perfect. You could argue, Baker outplayed him, but the turnovers were probably the difference in that football game. How do you feel coming out of Detroit, Tampa Bay?
I feel good, actually. I mean, I like Detroit early on, and the reason why I say that is we saw Aaron Jones have success, and I understand it was a rain-soaked field, but he still rushed for 108 yards on the ground. And what did you see in terms of the fourth quarter when the game was on the line and Detroit was up a score? Your guy, Jahmyr Gibbs, breaks off the 30-yard run. They ran the football when they had to close that football game out. I think it's a very run-heavy approach against San Francisco. They limit the amount of times Brock Purdy could maybe move the football and drive it. I think they try to get this game 21-17 and steal it into the fourth quarter. And when you have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and a consistent offensive line, to me, you have a shot.
Yeah, I think this team is really, as the season has continued, they've realized just how good Jahmyr Gibbs is. And I know that's probably weird to say considering how highly they drafted him, but he was playing second man in that split with David Montgomery. And Gibbs did not get the same number of carries as Monty, but he had 4 targets in the football game. And those were far more fruitful than the Montgomery checkdowns. It was a good performance overall from Gibbs. Again, I think one of the things that's going to sit with me, Joe, as we get closer to kickoff for that game, which is the Sunday night, 6 o'clock start, is how poor Brock Purdy played and the fact that was still a Niners victory. And I've not seen anything that suggests Detroit is going to hold down Brock Purdy in the way that Green Bay was able to for a while in that football game. I mean, Niners team total, Brock Purdy passing yards, Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk are some of the things that I think I'm going to be very, very interested in.
No, you make up great points, but the way you neutralize that, Kev, is obviously running the football, right? If you could sustain a 7 or an 8 minute drive, you have an opportunity to maybe limit possessions, and that's why I favor the under, and I actually do favor Detroit in the ball game. Here's the other factor as well, and it's not a knock on Purdy, but from an experience perspective, Goff has won in the NFC Championship. Purdy, up until this point, hasn't. He's at home. Is there a little pressure? Now, think about it. You know, last year he was on the road in Philly, and granted he got hurt, but now he's at home. He's in his house. Everything is set up for the NFC Championship victory. If he struggles early like he did against Green Bay, does that pressure get to him in that moment? Only time will tell. So I'm taking the dog, though. I really like Detroit as this line open up.
Have you been putting any eyeballs on the Super Bowl MVP market now that there's only 4 teams remaining?
Not yet, no. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs. How about Jahmyr Gibbs? How about take a shot
now
on...
you like that. Now you like the running back. Now that they took Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud away, he's starting to see it differently.
Jordan Love the right look at 34-1? He should have won that game, and I hate kickers. You know that. 2 kickers, Bass yesterday, not even close, shanked. I mean, it looked like he was on a 180-degree angle. Unbelievable.
It was a gale wind that came in as soon as that kick went up. He didn't account for it. He would have gave it another beat. He'd have been fine.
Let me just say this.
An unfortunate turn.
Big ball game out here tonight. Boston and Dallas. Keep an eye out for that Kyrie. Could be a sizzle play. Oh, say what?
Oh, listen, there's a college under lease he likes. DM him for the crypto college under. Joe Madden is up next.
The Lions were going to blow out the Rams, and in the first half I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game, and I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45. But I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. back right here. It is Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. We are now joined by Joe Madden, who not only is going to help us break down the ice tonight, but has also done a great job all year long helping us with the NFL, the primetime slates. And, Joe, we were able to talk to you before the NFL this weekend, and seemingly was a profitable one for yourself.
Yeah, it definitely was a profitable one from the plays I gave out on Game Time Decisions. Went 4-1 in those plays. We got some nice plus money with Jordan Love over the 1.5 passing touchdowns. The Packers to cover, the Texans in the first half. They just kept coming in. And then, of course, the Detroit Lions to cover and lay in the 6.5. It was a nice game out of them there.
Yeah, the Texans' first half play, I think there was a lot of people that were hoping, for Baltimore, a little get in, get out special. So that was a nice one. I think you went against a lot of people on that play, and it came in. Any early thoughts, Joe? I'm sure we'll talk later in the week, but on the two games that are set up for Conference Championship Sunday?
You know what? When I look at the 49ers and how lucky they were to pull off that win last week, you've got to look at that matchup with the Detroit Lions and think there's got to be a way for the Detroit Lions maybe to pull off that upset there. I think it's too many points is my first look. Grabbing the Detroit Lions plus the 7 is the only way that I could firstly look at that one, because I tell you, Brock Purdy just didn't look like themselves. And I know the 49ers probably played their worst game of the playoffs in that game versus the Green Bay Packers. I think they started off slow and they never came together. So first look, Detroit Lions plus the 7, but definitely we'll have some more picks in that one.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened, but somewhere along the way, Brock Purdy really became my guy. So I'm early just assuming he's going to play much, much better against Detroit, but time will tell. But let's get to the ice tonight, Joe. There's a lot of action here on a Monday for us, and it begins for you with the Jets and the Bruins. Winnipeg on the road in Boston. What are you looking for?
This is going to be an absolute battle out there on the ice, and I'm looking for both defenses and goaltenders to really lock down. I think this is going to be a back and forth defensive one here. Now, the Boston Bruins are so hard to beat at home, but this Winnipeg Jets team is strong versus them. They play in tight back and forth games. So if I was going to lean to a side, I really would look at the Jets to be able to pull off that upset here. I do think they have every ability with Connor Hellebuck in goal. He's been absolutely hot. And we look at the defense here of the Winnipeg Jets. They've been able to hold opponents to 2 or less goals in their last 14 games. The Boston Bruins team total, it looks a little scary to take it to the under, Kevin, but I have to take it to the under. It's sitting here at 2.5, the under 2.5 coming in at plus 130. I absolutely love. And then I'm going to look at that first period. I do think this could be a scoreless first period. I like the under 1.5 in the first period, and I might put a little bit of money on the no goal in the first 10 minutes as well. Like I said, I really do think this is a goaltending defensive battle out there on the ice. The last time these two teams did play, the Winnipeg Jets got a 5-1 win, and a lot of people do expect that bounce back to come out of the Boston Bruins. I'm just not buying into it. We saw the Boston Bruins play so strong in their last game versus Montreal, but it was versus Montreal. They got that 9-4 or 3 win, but I'm not buying that they can do that versus the Winnipeg Jets. So low scoring defensive battle out here. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and you can see, the full game 5.5 right now has minus 124 juice to the under. So some expectation that it could be low scoring, and it should make for a good one. Let's move over to this game featuring the LA Kings tonight here. They are at home and a outrageous favorite, minus 410 against the San Jose Sharks. I mean, that is a big, big number. Big number here. This Sharks team, obviously one of the worst in the league. Joe, what are you expecting?
Yeah. And it's really a hard situation because I tried to find a way to take the dog in the San Jose Sharks here. We know this team was able to pull off a couple big upsets on the road this season already. But like you said, this is the worst team in the whole league. With the struggles we've seen out of the LA Kings, I just can't see them taking the Sharks for granted. And I do think they come out strong to start this game. They absolutely need to get back on track. They just haven't been winning enough of these games. So I'm looking at the Kings in that first period, looking at them in the first period on the puck line. You only have to lay that half a goal and you're getting a good return here. That is coming in at minus 118. for laying that half a goal on that puck line. I expect that hot start out of them. I wouldn't be shocked if they got 2 or 3 goals on the San Jose Sharks in the first period. It's Mackenzie Blackwood in net for the Sharks tonight, and I don't have any faith in him, Kevin. And this Sharks team is coming off that upset win versus the Anaheim Ducks in their last game. They won that one 5-3. They got that offensive output. I expect the Kings to lock down defensively after they get up a couple of goals. My only concern here with the Kings is if they overlook them, but I just don't see it happening, especially in that first period with how poorly they've been playing as of late. So look for the Kings in the first period.
All right, a little get in, get out special there. I think what is remarkable, though, is Sharks are not even the biggest dog on this slate. Anyone want a 17-1 money line parlay on the Blackhawks and the Sharks? I doubt it, Joe. What do you think about Vancouver and Chicago?
Yeah, another one where I really tried to find and make a case for the Chicago Blackhawks, how they could come on and pull off this upset here. They're on a Pacific road trip, and they are off the win versus the Islanders on Friday night. So this team might come in with a little bit of momentum, but I don't think it's enough versus the Vancouver Canucks here. This team has been so phenomenally strong at home. Demko is confirmed in goal tonight, and I just don't see the Chicago Blackhawks being able to stand with this team. So I'm going to, again, look at that first period. I think it's a really solid way to go. We also know the Vancouver Canucks have the St. Louis Blues on deck. That could be a little bit of a look ahead because the St. Louis Blues did beat them earlier this month in a low-scoring 2-1 style game. So I could see maybe third period, this team having a little bit of struggles if the Chicago Blackhawks somehow rally together. But I'm just not buying it, especially in that first period. We look at the Canucks. They've come out so hot in the first period as well in their last couple. They put up 3 goals on the Toronto Maple Leafs in that one. The Penguins, they were able to get 3 goals a couple of games ago. So I do think out of the gate, Vancouver puck line here is the way to go. And I would look at Elias Pettersson here for the anytime goal. He's been so phenomenally strong. He's coming in at plus 120. He's got 25 goals and 36 assists on the season. He plays on the top line as well as on the number 1 power play. So I'm expecting a lot out of him tonight.
Yeah, I think, I'm curious though, Joe, how tricky is it to find spots to back a team like San Jose or a team like Chicago? Or is it just as simple as, no, we're going to, try and find this first quarter value and go against them all season long?
You know what? You have to look for those look-ahead situations for the favorite. And that's what I really try to dig into because we know every dog has their day, Kevin. And when you have a divisional matchup or something like that on deck for these favorites, or they've come home off a long road trip, there's always a situation where you can fade the favorites. Today, in these 2 matchups, I just couldn't find any reason why the favorites wouldn't come out strong. So if I was looking at either of these 2 dogs, which one I would have more faith in being able to come out, I guess it would be the Sharks, just because of what we've seen previously on the road. But again, when you're facing the Kings that have had their struggles as of late, they can't let any opponent go. So they need this win tonight. The Edmonton Oilers are chasing them in the Pacific here.
All right, let's talk to a game where it's a bit more evenly matched in Nashville tonight. Florida, though, a road favorite at minus 130, 5.5 listed total, but trending towards a 6. What do you see here, Preds-Panthers?
Okay, this is going to be a really interesting matchup between these two because I love how both teams have been playing, except we know the Florida Panthers have been on a losing streak, losing their last 4. This team is so solid at locking down defensively. And I do think the Predators have the ability to push them into maybe a higher scoring game here. So I am leaning towards this one going over the total. I think it's a really hard game here to lay minus 130 with the Florida Panthers. I just don't like the value you're getting on them versus the Predators because there's so much talent on both sides of the puck. The dad's trip is in play here for the Florida Panthers. So I'm not going to fade them here. I would lean on them being able to get the win. I'm going to look at a couple of guys to be able to get those goals. Brandon Montour, offensive defenseman here. We've been seeing pictures of him and his dad nonstop on this dad's trip. It's a one-night dad's trip in Nashville, the party is going to happen tonight. So I do think Brandon Montour tries to get on that scoreboard. So much value at plus 650 for him. And then you got to look at Sam Bennett for the anytime goal. He's been so phenomenally hot. Plus 230 here for him for the anytime goal. 5 goals and 3 assists in his last 10 games. And with Barkov out of the lineup, he's been getting more play time. So I do think both of these guys have the ability to get on the scoreboard. Sam Bennett, of course, a lot more. But Brandon Montour, I wouldn't rule him out tonight. Such a strong offensive defenseman here. And he's been racking up the shots on goal in his last couple of games. I like his ability. And we know how strong he was in the playoffs last season. So I do think he can get it done. But I would look at fading maybe Florida the next game at home versus the Coyotes, because one time in Nashville here with their dads, you know they're going to party tonight. They have the Coyotes on Wednesday. Maybe the Coyotes first period on Wednesday already, Kevin.
Not a bad idea. I also, just while we're talking hockey, want to bring up something that has recently appeared. Is Nathan MacKinnon versus the field to win the Hart Trophy? MacKinnon at plus 120, the field at minus 150. The other two guys underneath 10-1 are Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov, which have made up 4 of the last 7 MVPs, 3 of those belonging to Connor McDavid. I know the field at minus 150 might seem expensive, but McKinnon gets an injury. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's certainly something we will keep tabs on. Joe, we appreciate it. As always, helping us break down the hockey. I'll go through the NBA card next.
We're going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45, but I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. They Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. All right, let's make it happen for the people here. It is a Monday night on GameTime Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh, and got to go through the card. We've got some value out in the NBA. I do have a college pick. Let's do that first. It's actually my favorite bet on tonight's board, and this does work out. There is, and I don't mind letting the people know about this, over on DraftKings, a boost specifically for Kansas-Cincinnati on the college side tonight. And I have a college player prop in that game, which is Hunter Dickinson over 31.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Kansas is coming off of, obviously, their worst performance of the season because it was a loss to West Virginia. So far, Dickinson, off of a loss, had 17 and 20 against the Vols, 24-14 against OU. This is a bounce-back spot for Hunter Dickinson because Kansas requires it. While they are booked as a strong 8.5-point favorite against the Bearcats, this Big 12 is no joke this season, and Kansas is going to have to bring their best. And that's why I really like this spot here for Hunter Dickinson. You could justifiably play his rebounds only, as he is coming off of consecutive games for the first time this season without 11 or more rebounds. His rebound prop tonight is listed at 10.5. The only other time he had 2 straight games without double-digit boards, he followed up with 21 against Kentucky. And to be fair, the 2 prior games were against low-level, I only need to play 26 minutes here tonight competition. So really, this is the first time we've seen Dickinson limited like this on the glass. I think he can explode. The reason I want to bring the points into the equation, and yes, this is points, rebounds, and assists. We're not at the point yet in the college game where we get points plus rebounds. The assist prop, though, was 2.5. He actually last game had 5 dimes, and I don't mind bringing that in. He should be able to get at least 2 assists. It's not going to burn us in any capacity here. But the 2 home Big 12 games for Hunter Dickinson, 30 points, 24 points. I think tonight looks something like 25 and 15 for KU's best player in a step-up spot against Cincinnati. Let's talk some NBA. There are 2 injury bounce-back low lines, if you will, here. On 1, Franz Wagner, and 2, LaMelo Ball. Let's start with Franz Wagner, playing him over 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Franz had his first game back against Miami and is not going to be sitting on the second leg of a back-to-back. In this game, Franz had 19, 5, and 2, which happens to be 26 PRA, did so in only 28 minutes. Not a minutes restriction. They blew out Miami, dominated them, had a lead as high as 24, up 20 in the fourth quarter, handled their business, the Orlando Magic. Paolo hardly played more. So I think I can get Franz Wagner tonight to play his typical minutes, which would be about over 33 per game. And Franz, prior to this injury, was averaging 31.2 PRA. If you look at his performance in the first game back, he was trending towards well over 30 points, rebounds, and assists had he played his normal workload. Tonight at home against the Cavs, short line, slightly favoring Cleveland. I get Franz Wagner for 33 minutes. I'm going to get him for 30-plus points, rebounds, and assists. This is a good spot here for me with Franz Wagner, also who on the season has done very well on the second leg of a back-to-back. The game he got injured in was that. So if you remove that and give you the 6-game sample size, 4 out of the 6 he went over this PRA with 4 20-plus point performances. So if you want to take the Franz points, I'm not mad at it. LaMelo Ball, similar situation. LaMelo came back from injury, and they hung his rebounds plus assist prop at 11.5 the first 2 games. Then they moved it up to 12.5. Then against San Antonio, we saw a 15.5 PRA number on LaMelo Ball. Now, he did go well under that prop against the Spurs, only with 9, had 8 assists, and just 1 rebound. But they started to jack this up. LaMelo missed the last Hornets game, but is back and expected to have a full workload tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And they hang 11.5 rebounds plus assists. I have to get involved on this number. LaMelo, again, is at the moment sitting 2-2 on this prop since returning from injury. Prior to the injury, he was 10-4 against this number. I think this is a spot where they are dropping it massively due to it being Minnesota, but a bit of an overreaction because he didn't clear this number with wild consistency upon returning. But he is still on the year, removing the game he exited with an injury early, sitting at 12-6 on an 11.5 rebounds plus assist prop. This number usually for LaMelo Ball would be 14.5. When you're playing with a number like this, to get a value of 3 rebounds plus assists, it is more than worthwhile. Give me LaMelo Ball over 11.5 rebounds plus assists. Let's get into Joel Embiid, the other player prop I'm on tonight. Embiid has played an outrageous amount of games against bottom 8 defenses. Tonight I saw they were playing the Spurs, and I was interested in the Embiid props. You can find his points prop at 34.5. Have no issue if you want to play that over. If you want to go for his alts, you can, but I don't know, it's still hard for me to bet plus 165 on a guy to score 40, admittedly. But I wanted to see what Embiid did early in these basketball games, and there's a lot of dominance for Joel Embiid. In 13 games, which means tonight, 14 out of his 32 games played this season will have come against bottom 8 defenses. Just as a quick aside, I don't think that's going to cost Embiid anything in the MVP race. He scored 51 against the number 1 defense in the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I don't want to say that what Embiid doing is fraudulent. I think that would be wildly unfair. But I also think that Embiid has played an almost unimaginable amount of his games against the worst defenses in the NBA. And by the way, I'm saying bottom 8 defenses because I added in a Blazers game. Remove that, there's 12 games against the bottom 5 defenses in basketball: Detroit, Charlotte, Washington, Atlanta, and Indiana. It's just interesting when we always think about how Embiid is going to translate to the postseason. You know, if the season ended today, their first-round matchup would be Miami, right? We know that Boston has limited him in both of their meetings. It's just those type of things that, as somebody who's backing the Sixers to win a championship preseason, and I like the early returns on my number, that's where things with Philly gets worrisome, right? Is what happens when Embiid is no longer slaying bums in the way that he has been all season long. But that doesn't matter tonight here on January 22nd because he's going to continue to slay bums. 11.5 first quarter points over for me on JoJo here. He's again done this in 8 of these 13 games, over in all 4 since returning. I took a piece, by the way, better than plus 250 on Embiid to score 16 plus in the first quarter. He has done that on a handful of occasions using this sample size. Embiid attacks early, and I think he wouldn't mind a little bit of a narrative takedown, if you will, on the one and only Victor Wembanyama. Mavs Celtics is your game of the night, and I'm playing Dallas here, catching 2.5. Look, I respect this Boston team at minimum through a regular season lens, but this is a difficult spot the Celtics find them in tonight. Last game out, they just went to Houston and got a win. Things this season against the Rockets hardly come easy, and Boston had to put together a full workload. So now on the second leg of a back-to-back, they're without Kristaps Porzingis. And I know that's not Tatum or Jaylen Brown, but Kristaps this season has been better than Jaylen Brown. He's been amazing. And to not have him in your lineup, I think, should be reflected in this line more. And I understand they're 8-2 this season without Kristaps, but they're 2-2 this season without him on the road. We know how dominant they've been at home. And if you look this season, Boston is just 2-2 straight up when the second leg of a back-to-back is on a road. And only once this season have they played the second leg of a back-to-back on the road where they won the game prior. And that was at Charlotte, and they lost in overtime. So that, to me, is what we have here. What we also don't have is a Mavericks team that I still believe is underrated. Dallas came out of this season looking incredibly dangerous. Then Kyrie picked up an injury. It's been a little up and down since. But this team has played 10 home games so far with Luka and Kyrie available, and they're 7-3 in those games. You'll take 70%. I'll take 2.5 points tonight with the Dallas Mavericks. Quick note, I'm not betting Kings-Hawks tonight because I don't want to get burned on the same thing that burned me twice with the Pacers. So when the Pacers lost Tyrese Halliburton, they came out and played a game against Washington, and then again against Atlanta. And they dropped the total about 10 points, roughly, due to Halliburton's absence. I thought that might have been an overreaction, and I played the over twice, and I lost both times. Tonight, Trae Young is not going to be available for the Hawks. These teams played about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The total is 15 points lower. 15 full points lower than the last meeting, which is remarkable. But Trae Young is Trae Young, and the Halliburton stuff that I attempted to do was incorrect, so I'm not going to get involved here. 237.5 is your listed total tonight. I am on an over, though, in Suns-Bulls at 226.5. This is a game I went through a few times trying to find the appropriate angle and did land on the Suns. This big three has only played once together on the second leg of a back-to-back. It was in LA against the Clips and gave up 138. They gave up 30-plus points in every single quarter against that game. And we've seen the Suns throughout the year give up a lot of team totals on the second leg of a back-to-back, and the Chicago Bulls offense has looked good when playing with a rest advantage, and they're playing with that tonight. I specifically think you could see Nikola Vucevic step in and have himself a good game here, who's been playing strong since returning from injury and grabbing his starting roster spot back from Andre Drummond. I'm also, though, very curious if you want a pure narrative play on Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is the third man of a big three. 2 games ago for Phoenix, Devin Booker scored 52. That was then followed up by last night's victory against the Pacers, seeing Kevin Durant score 40. Is there a world they just push Beal tonight? Get him to 30, 25? His prop tonight, 18.5, 19.5. To score 25, you're getting around 3-1. To score 30, you're getting about 10-1. It's super narrative. Super, super narrative. But you don't have to worry too much at the minimum of Beal being on this back-to-back just because he's played 3 games on the second leg and he's played 35-plus on all of them. So you are going to get a workload tonight from Bradley Beal. There's something to consider. The 2 NBA games I'm not on. Bucks-Pistons, 12.5-point line in favor of Milwaukee. Total listed for this game at 248. I'm tempted to see if Dame keeps it going. Had 45 last game out against this team. They stuck him with a 26.5. We know from his days in Portland, when Lillard gets in a rhythm, it can be weeks long, and he can just go through every number. And Giannis doesn't mind a backseat. Plus, against a defense like Detroit's, he gets his kind of in his sleep, if you will. The Dame number tonight, 26.5. And then Raptors-Grizzlies, a 7.5-point line. Total checks in 225.5. Not on it, but Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s workload is out of this world due to the absences of now John Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart. Where the value would potentially still sit would be his over 2.5 made 3 prop, still sitting at plus money. He has a ton of 3-point volume now with the absences of all of the top scorers on this Memphis team. We'll see how it translates tonight against Toronto. We'll close out our opening hour here on a Monday night. Next, it's SportsGrid Game Time Decisions.
We're going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, This is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45, but I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Back with you here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh. It is Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. Coming up in hour number 2, we'll get our same game parlay from Davis Maddock. We'll hear from Coach James Young at 7:40 and get his picks on the games that have not just tipped off yet in the NBA and on the college side of things. Joe Ranieri stops by, as well as his counterpart on In-Game Lives on that primetime Sunday slate there. Following the 1 o'clock window, Mike Blewett and some of his early thoughts here from the conference championship weekend and what is left from the divisional round to discuss. Let me just quickly give you the NBA. If I had to narrow it down to just one bet tonight, it actually would be the LaMelo Ball 11.5 rebounds plus assists. I don't mind going against a number that I think is truly justified by a great defensive opponent. And while I think that Minnesota is obviously a great defense, 15.5 against the Spurs, 11.5 against Minnesota, you don't change a star player's prop 4 full points. I think and not even 4 points, 4 rebounds plus assists. That is a long way to move a number. And LaMelo's availability should be fine. He's 2-2 against this number since returning. 10 out of 4 games prior to the injury, he hit this prop. I think this number at even 12.5, maybe I would have hesitated. 13.5, 14.5 would have still been a justifiable number, I think, by the books here. I think 11.5 is too light. The 7 o'clock game that I am involved in is Sixers Spurs as Joel Embiid's march towards potentially repeating as league MVP attempts to continue against a hopeful rookie of the year, Embiid versus Wemby. And I like JoJo hot out of the gate over 11.5 points in the first quarter for Joel Embiid tonight. Also took a shot on him getting 16 plus in the first quarter against the San Antonio Spurs. At the top of the hour, the NFL's postseason statistical leaders and the outright markets for those categories with you right here on a Monday.
All right, we're back with you right here. It is SportsGrid. It is a Monday night, and it's Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Going to pass it over to Davis Maddock, who has the same game parlay for Celtics Mavericks.
All right, guys, we are back for another same game parlay. Over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, we're going to look at one of the marquee games, actually the marquee game in the NBA tonight. We have the Boston Celtics traveling on the road to play against the Dallas Mavericks. We are going to begin our same game parlay by taking the Boston Celtics minus 3.5. This is the number one team in net rating. They are so much better than every other team by net rating. They are 10% better than every other team, and the distance between them and first and the Oklahoma City Thunder in third is the same as the difference between the Minnesota Timberwolves at 4 and the Milwaukee Bucks at 9. They are a phenomenally good team. They are a little bit banged up right now. Drew Holiday and Al Horford missed their game on Sunday. We'll see if they are able to play in this one, but I don't really care. The Boston Celtics are the best team in the NBA, and I know the Mavericks are playing much better, though they are still missing Dante Exum and Seth Curry. We are just going to be betting on the best team in the NBA, and we are also going to take the under on 239.5 because I think that is the path to a clear, decisive Celtics victory, is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving being limited on offense. I think these two wagers correlate together very well. So the Boston Celtics minus 3.5 and the under on 239.5 at plus 232 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Good luck tonight, everybody.
I'd appreciate, even if I disagree with Davis Maddock there, is he's going to be backing Boston on this, pairing it with the under, which I think is interesting. This game has a total, again, played it at the 239 and a half. No Kristaps tonight. Still could be some juice on the floor. If I were to add player props, I would look towards Jaylen Brown specifically for a bounce-back spot. I know he had a triple-double, but did not shoot it very well in his last 2 games out, actually. Let's get our radio audience in the fold. Appreciate all of us who are here on a Monday night across the network, including SiriusXM, channel 159. I want to look at the postseason statistical leaders. You guys know I enjoy these markets, and the passing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and rushing touchdown markets are, as always to me, most interesting. Starting, in fact, with the rushing touchdown market, that is where we see a new favorite. It was Aaron Jones, but that is no longer the case. Jones did not score against the Niners, which I thought was possible. Still is currently in the lead alongside Josh Allen. These two guys are now both posted at plus 750. McCaffrey is the current favorite, plus 105. Isaiah Pacheco, 5-1. Lamar Jackson, plus 550. The only other guy that feels really in the mix through the odds would be Jahmyr Gibbs at 9-1. Gibbs has 2, Pacheco 2, Lamar 2, and CMC 2. If you like the Chiefs, Pacheco's great. He feels like he can score every game. 2+ makes a lot of sense. Don't like Lamar at all, even if I think the Ravens are going to win. 2 rushing touchdowns against the Texans. Tip the cap. He had 5 during the regular season. I'm not... And if Lamar is just going to run in touchdowns now because it's the postseason and it matters more, again, tip the cap. I'm not looking to play him. McCaffrey at plus 105 is the rightful favorite. He's under 2-1 now in these games to score twice. So if he's going to score at least once, good chance it's a rushing touchdown. Huge favorite relative to it being a conference championship game. Would be favored in the Super Bowl. You know he's going to be a huge favorite to score in that game, no matter who it's against. McCaffrey at plus 105 is the guy. It's not a bad way to play, and this isn't exact, but it's not a bad way to almost just say McCaffrey anytime plus Niners money line. You're probably getting a better price at that plus 105, because what that is going to do, it would have him tied, as long as it's a rushing touchdown, with Jones and Josh Allen. I'm not going to be investing in this market with the CMC postseason long prop that I played being 1 away. That number's now settled. How about playoff receiving touchdowns? Plus 125, Jake Ferguson. 2-1, Travis Kelce. Donnie Rightside shout out. George Kittle, plus 750. Amon-Ra, 10-1. How about Brandon Ayuk being the 5th choice, 16-1? He hasn't even scored. Rashee Rice, 20-1. Sam Laporta, 25. So if you look in this market right now with the receiving touchdowns, Of course, Ferguson has 3. Kelsey with 2. Shakir eliminated 2. And then there's a lot of guys that have 1 touchdown. But who is really in the mix here? If you like Kelsey to score, you would be getting a portion of the pie. If you like him to score twice, you're probably just better off betting that as opposed to betting him in this market. Kittle at 750, though, now that he already has one on the board, favor to win the game, Debo being out is big. It really opens up the pathway. Look, I think this is a situation when you consider Debo potentially being out, it is so massive because of what it opens up in the passing game. There's a big sample size out there. We'll talk about it more throughout our week of Kittle plus Ayuk, no Debo Samuel, and what that means going into the Detroit game. You know, I had myself what ended up being an overall very good weekend, powered by a really nice Sunday, and Lions-Bucks was excellent. And one of the things that worked out was trusting Mike Evans being the number 1 wide receiver, as Detroit has been just completely inept against number 1 wideouts, allowing nearly 140 yards per game to the opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. And that is, by the way, not me kind of spinning it like, oh, okay, who's ever the top guy in this game. No, it's just the guy that's number 1. If you really wanted to argue, Jerry Jeudy had 74, Sutton had 70. You want to take it down 4 total yards, it's not going to make the difference. Okay? I mean, and it's been consistent. Mike Evans only added to that. All of these guys catch touchdowns for the most part as well. So Ayuk should be into the end zone. Where I think Ayuk gets a little interesting, though, would actually be the postseason receiving yards. But he's 20-1 in the market. So you have to kind of pair the Ayuk concept, right? And he's way down here at the moment right now because he did not have himself a good game at all. How much value is his 20-1 in this market against his alts, right? Dobbs and Mike Evans in first and second respectively are already eliminated. Amon-Ra has 187. Nakua's gone. Rice 177 has another game. I'm interested in Ayuk at 20-1. I just want to see how it compares to his props on the for alts within the game. Because if they play Baltimore's had some issues against number 1 wide receivers. We've seen. I know they did a nice job, against Nico Collins, but we have seen some top wideouts have good games there. Ayuk is an interesting guy at 20-1. These are markets we'll be keeping tabs on here. Game Time Decisions and Pro Football Today. But we stop in. Mike Blewett joins the show. Next with us here, it is SportsGrid's Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. Mike Blewett in next as we recap the divisional round and look towards Conference Championship Sunday.
We're going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45. But I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled like seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Game Time Decisions. It is a Monday night, now joined by Mike Blewett. Mike, how are you?
I'm great, buddy. I was fired up for the championship games. We got a good one last night. Joe Rainieri and I were able to cover Chiefs-Bills, an exciting game, obviously, and hopefully we get more of the same, as well as the NFC championship game next Sunday.
One of the things that's kind of setting into me is I think Mike is actually good vibes for my bets. I think one of the last times we did this, I was laying like a 40 number with Baylor, and they were up like 20-0. I took Embiid's first quarter points, Mike. First possession, he gets fouled. I don't know if it was a 1 or a 2 or a 3, but we're out of the gates hot here, Mike. That's what we like to see.
Yeah. I mean, they feel like winners already.
I mean, exactly. So, Mike, I just realized this. Genuinely, you are the perfect person to do this with, because most people would tell me this is a waste of time. But I think this is because you and I used to do this exercise back in the old day of if X game was the Super Bowl, who would win MVP? Doing it for Ravens-Texans is not interesting, as obviously Lamar would have won it twice over. But I think the rest of the games are a bit interesting, so I'll ask you, Niners-Packers, McCaffrey goes 17 for 98, 2 touchdowns, added 30 in the air. I don't think the other guy is Brock Purdy. I think it would have been Dre Greenlaw, led the team in tackles and had 2 interceptions, including, of course, the game sealer. What would you think of that MVP, potentially Niners-Packers?
I think because it's McCaffrey and he had 2 scores, as you said, I think it goes to him. But a game-clinching interception and 2 key interceptions in the game, it wasn't a blowout. It was a close game. You could give it to him. We've obviously seen that in Super Bowls in the past, right? Dexter Jackson had a couple of picks and won a Super Bowl MVP. Larry Brown had a couple of picks and won a Super Bowl MVP. So anytime a player, defensive player, is making 2 big plays like that, he's going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I think there would be a lot of conversation around it, even if the end result would probably be CMC. Lions-Bucks. Goff throws for 287 and 2. It was clean, but it wasn't amazing. Jahmyr Gibbs, 74 on the ground, a touchdown, another 40 in the air. Hutchinson wasn't great. Is it just nobody else stood out? Give it a Goff?
I thought Jared Goff played really well, but that's a little bit more of it wasn't eye-popping stats. I thought, but Goff has played very clean, obviously, through the playoffs. Hasn't thrown an interception yet, and I think he's got 5 touchdowns so far. But Gibbs really did have an explosive game. He didn't touch the ball that many times, 13 touches in total. I thought he had an explosive game. The reality is if it was a Super Bowl, Kev, it's just going to go to the QB because Amon-Ra St. Brown had a really good game. Jahmyr Gibbs had a very good game.
Yeah.
But it just tends to go to the QB, and especially when he was making plays, keeping it clean. I think that one goes to Goff. But again, an interesting discussion because I thought Gibbs was the most explosive player on the field.
And then the final one, where a lot of people would tell me, again, this is a waste, but I would disagree a bit. Mahomes throws 2 touchdowns, but only 215 yards. Both touchdowns go to Kelsey. He has 75 yards, which is a good chunk. Pacheco, by the way, has 100 yards of offense and a score. You think it's obviously Mahomes still?
I think it's Mahomes. Part of that is because it is him, right? That's always going to go. That's always going to follow him around.
Tom didn't win it every year.
But Tom did win it at times when he shouldn't have. He won it after the 2001 season. That wasn't even a good game. It's just that it couldn't go to anybody else. The Edelman one, there was no offense, so you had to give it to the one person that had any stats at all. He was obviously very good against Seattle, and Tom was very good against Atlanta as well. But even the Atlanta Super Bowl, that was not Tom's best game. And James White was really the one who had big numbers in that game, scoring multiple touchdowns, multiple 2-point conversions. I thought he got robbed. So Tom definitely won a bunch, and he didn't win every time. But my point is he won a couple that I don't think he necessarily deserved that day.
Yeah, I think that is fair. It's so interesting with the way, and I don't know if this creeps in at all, right? But it's Mahomes, but man, it's Kelsey isn't all too far off. He is at the moment actually becoming more of the story. It's been all season long with Taylor. Now that Jason's eliminated, he's going to be front and center. They have to get there. I actually don't think they will, but
I don't either.
It's just something to be, Mahomes is 5-1, Kelsey's 85-1, Pacheco's 140. I'll just say this. I'd much rather bet Pacheco at 140 than Mahomes at 5. You just bet the Chiefs to win the dang Super Bowl then at plus 440. But Mike, with 4
you
teams
came to the right place. You want to talk Isaiah Pacheco, 140-1, you came to the right guy. That's what we're doing.
If I liked them more in the game, I would be on it. But I think Baltimore, and we can go into this, I think the Ravens got the better of the matchups that were potentially on the table for them.
I don't know if I agree with that, because for all of the narrative that has gone on in the last 24 hours, and Josh needs to make better decisions, the kicker, what is McDermott doing, why the fake punt? Where's the defense? How about 0 sacks? How about Von Miller makes one play other than tackling a running back on the outside? Let's make one play, guys. We've outpossessed them 37-23. Can we make some tackles, bat down a pass, do something, and give our quarterback a shot? He threw the greatest pass of all time, and it got dropped by the $15 million wide receiver. So a lot of blame going around, and I don't think the defense has got anywhere near their share of the blame. Now, they're obviously depleted. No Milano, no White. Bernard was out. They've had a lot of injuries, but they sure as hell played like it last night. They did not get any stops. For Mahomes to have the ball for 23 minutes and to easily score 27 points, and he could have scored more, that's the story of the game for me.
So that was actually the first thing I was going to ask you, but then I got to play the MVP game, which I'm happy about. Yep. When recapping why Buffalo lost, it is actually remarkable how many things went wrong in a 3-point loss. Some of that is all of the potential fumbles bounced their way. Diggs early, Kincaid got to it. Josh late, Kincaid got to it. And then Mecole out of the back of the end zone. But the wide receivers couldn't catch. Josh eventually could not help but try and just, I have to throw a touchdown. No, you don't. Yep. Just pick up 12 yards. The kicker missed the field goal. The defense gave up almost 8 yards per play. There's so many things that went wrong, Mike. That is almost the lasting thing of this Bills team. We're not far away from when you and I will be talking about who do you like next year for the Super Bowl? Who's the February early look? I already know one team I'm going to cross off. I know they got so ravaged by injury throughout the season defensively, but, man, it just felt so now or never for Buffalo. And
There's going to have to be huge changes to convince me that this wasn't a major missed opportunity.
And I struggle to see how major it can be, right, when they're working with some of the salary cap numbers they have. Once the Chiefs took the lead, Kev, 27-24, it's in the fourth quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. The Bills ran 23 offensive plays in the fourth quarter for 59 yards. Turnover on downs, punt, missed field goal, 0 points at home in the fourth quarter. I don't know how you can be that inefficient and put up no points. There's just, as you said, so many things went wrong. But running 23 plays in one quarter, picking up 59 yards and 0 points, that says a lot.
And I'll tell you this, and I talked with someone whose opinion I respect on it, but I disagreed, was if they would have made the field goal, Mahomes would have let him down the field anyway. I don't think so. He had the chance twice to ice the game, the possession prior to the missed field goal. Couldn't do it. He hasn't done it all year long. I know who he is, but, man, that was Buffalo's chance, and they blew it. Mike, appreciate it as always. I'm sure we'll talk to you a little bit later this week. Joe Ranieri in next.
I really thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45, but I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. We are back right here. It's Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. I'm Kevin Walsh, joined by Joe Ranieri. Joe, how are we feeling here on a Monday?
Well, much better than Bass and the Buffalo Bills. I can assure you of that. It's just a rough road, man. Rough road to take there. But hey, you get to this point now where it's like, what? And they kept asking Josh last night. Did you see that? Like, what is it? A wholesale change, or what do you see happening? I don't know. It's always one play short, and it always seems to happen against Mahomes. They certainly have the talent. They just got to make the play when they need it to make. That's what separates the men from the boys. You know this, Walsh. You got to make the big play. Diggs has got to make that catch. He's got to make that throw to Shakir in the end zone. You got to make the field goal. You're one play away from heading to the Super Bowl, and every year they're one play short.
It is, but that's the thing that, again, is resonating with me, Joe, is it felt like there's just 500 things that went wrong in that game. Like, true, like, they did get every single fumble bounce, but the fact he tried to throw the touchdown to Shakir instead of taking Diggs, the fact that Diggs can't catch, the fact that Sheffield can't catch, the fact that Bass missed the field goal, the fact that the defense had about 4 guys from the projected starting lineup from prior to the season beginning. It's just, I don't know. It was just such a crazy thing to kind of recap and react to. I want to ask you, though, Joe, because I know you always are involved on the slate no matter what's out there. NBA-wise, what were you looking at tonight?
Well, a couple of the late games here. Let's just start with the simple fact, go to the late game. Who in the hell is Sacramento to be laying 8.5 points against anybody right now, including even Atlanta, who, by the way, Trae Young's got that nice, the concussion, and he's out indefinitely here. But wouldn't you know it, it also happens to coincide with Atlanta all of a sudden playing some defense, if you've noticed there, with no Trae Young. The scoring has been down, but the defense has been better. I think it's 5 straight unders, in fact, somewhere along those lines. Mike Brown keeps screaming about playing defense. We need to play some defense. All right, well, here's your chance tonight. I wouldn't go anywhere near laying the 8.5 with Sacramento, but I'll take a stab at the under.
I got to tell you, I learned this lesson, but I learned it with the Pacers. Halliburton went out. They dropped those Pacers totals about 10 points from where they usually were. I'm like, there's no way a player matters 10 points. Nope. He mattered. He mattered a bunch. These teams played about less than a month ago. That total was 252.5. So you're moving a number 15 points, and I had to train myself because I saw them. But no, it's for a very good reason, and if anything, the books can't move it enough. Right? And that opens it up. College-wise, Joe, Kansas with an important game tonight against Cincinnati. Look, we're used to, the road, and teams lose all the time now if it's in college basketball, but Kansas is just a couple rungs above West Virginia. That was an ugly one. What do you think about their game tonight against Cincinnati?
Well, listen, it's, Cincinnati's learning the hard way, right? That there is, welcome to the Big 12 because there's no easy games. I mean, their schedule has been absolutely brutal, the Bearcats here. And KU, another disappointing loss against West Virginia as a 10-point favorite. And yet, what does the market do here? Well, they say, okay, they're at Fog Allen, we'll go ahead and lay another 8-9 points. Like, what are we thinking here? The Bearcats, I think, line up well against Kansas here. I think the things that Cincinnati, especially defensively, can do well, that's going to be a problem for KU. KU beats certain styles of teams. Other teams seem to give them problems. This is a very strange season for KU here. I think they win. Would I be willing to say, though, they're just going to beat them by double? Absolutely not. I think Cincinnati hangs around and once again gives Kansas all they can handle, even at Fog Allen.
And again, to your point, cover at Baylor, outright win against BYU on the road. Cincinnati is the complete reverse of what college basketball is this season. Their worst ball is played at home. right? The loss to Texas, the loss to Oklahoma. And again, it took everything for them to pull out that win against TCU in overtime, which has been interesting. And again, UNC live right now, 22-14, that game trending under early. All right, so to wrap back around to the NFL, Joe, we've spent, I feel like, a lot of the show doing Ravens-Chiefs, so let me throw you Niners-Lions. What do you make of the fact that we have a conference championship game lined at 7 right now?
It feels right. I mean, it was 6.5 briefly when it first opened up, but I think this is right. I mean, listen, the Lions are a fantastic story. Quite honestly, I thought this thing would be much closer to 8.5, and we may very well get there. I think the recency bias will play into this, where and people remember the last game here against Green Bay, and somehow San Francisco is terrible. Oh no, that's not the situation at all of what we've got going on here. The conditions were terrible. I haven't seen that kind of rain for an entire game in a long time here. Now, will the weather be any better and cooperate for the 49ers here? We'll have to wait and see, but I can tell you this. I just watched Purdy make big plays when he needed to outdoors in the elements. When is the last time you've seen Jared Goff outdoors in the elements in conditions make enough plays to win anything?
Yeah, I think that, listen, it's one of those things where you see it 7, you're like, oh, that's a lot. You could easily find the 6.5. I just keep coming back to Brock Purdy, Joe, had about, I think it was 6.4 yards per pass attempt against Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That is his second lowest of the entire year. Like, I do not think you can stress enough how bad it was for Green Bay to not get that one. Like, I don't want to make it sound disrespectful to Detroit, that the Packers would see the Lions, or even if it was the Bucs, like, oh, this is easy. It's not about it being easy, or it's not about, for the Lions, saying, oh, Green Bay would have been easy. Green Bay would have been red hot. Green Bay already beat them in Detroit.
Yep.
But it is the fact that the Lions would have been hosting this football game. And now you have in my opinion, very due Brock Purdy on the other side of the field against a pass defense, Joe, going to the Rams game. Oh, everyone said, watch out. Stafford's going to light him up. He did. And then a lot of people said, well, Baker's probably going to do the same. And I was like, could it be that easy? It was. 2 games. They've given up, nearly 700 passing yards, Joe. So if you're going to get A-plus Brock Purdy or A-level Brock Purdy, it's going to be hard for Detroit to get enough stops in this game.
Well, especially with Shanahan scheming, because they're going to throw the ball. And let's face it, Detroit can't stop anybody from throwing the ball. That's their big weakness on the defensive side. Now, we got good news, I guess, from Deebo Samuel today. I guess there is no break or tear or anything along those lines, I guess, with the shoulder. Yeah. So they are saying they anticipate him going. Now, that's great, but even if he doesn't, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, that is a nightmare scenario with Shanahan scheming against that secondary of Detroit, which means that if they are on, and I do think you're getting some value here because recency bias, everyone watching Purdy in that last game going, oh, no, he's terrible. Lions, this is outdoors. This is a different Jared Goff that we're going to be getting here. And until he actually does it, no, I am not buying it. I think it'll be a fun one for a little while, but ultimately I think the defense will be better for the 49ers, and I think they're just going to eat up that secondary, and I don't think they're going to have enough opportunities to be able to come back.
To your point there as well, one of the things that I feel, not fully on an island, but I actually thought the Niners defense played significantly better than some of the conversation has suggested.
Yes.
They held that team to 3 field goals. They missed one of them. The touchdown drives, 3rd and 15, DPI, spot foul, and then that 70-yard kick return that they almost fumbled. Well, they did fumble, and they almost didn't recover. I'll ask you quickly, Joe. Maybe we'll talk to you more throughout the week here. I got a good feeling we will. What are you thinking about the Ravens-Chiefs line early?
Listen, I think I think whoever won that game last night was in trouble either way. The injuries are piling up. I think Kansas City left it all out in Orchard Park. So did the Bills. That's what I'm telling Bills people today. Like, guys, even if you won that game, you may have won the battle. You're losing the war. I mean, you're getting guys off the couch to play linebacker for you because you have nobody left. So, there's levels to this. Now, Mahomes will always give it an opportunity to pull the upset, but ultimately, I just think too many weapons, too much Lamar, and not this year. A great run there for Kansas City, but yeah, I think this is Baltimore's to lose. And let me just warn you, we have seen Lamar and Harbaugh in this spot shoot themselves in the foot in these situations. If they don't do that, I think they win it rather comfortably.
I also just think we deserve Niners-Ravens, where
Yes.
this line is going to be pick. And the conversation around this line is going to be absolutely glorious. A lot of people are going to get really angry at whomever they are talking this game through with, and I can't wait. Joe, appreciate it. Up next, Coach James Young. By the way, Joel Embiid, my MVP. My goodness.
Thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams, and in the first half I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game, and I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45, but I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. We're live on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh. I'm joined by Coach James Young. JY, you're telling me that you hit a Wemby bet. I'm happy for you, but I'm also happy you're here because I hit a bet as well. I'll tell you about it in a minute. I don't want you to tell me what you would do here. Over under 49.5. That is Embiid's live points prop. He just scored 24 points in the first quarter against the San Antonio Spurs.
Hit it! He goes for a 50 burger. Because he's going for 50 because to me, the closer this game is, and it's a 1-point game, right, Kevin? It's a 1-point game going into the second quarter. So he's got 24. He's going to have what? 32 at the break? Like, and if he has 32 at the break, 34 at the break, and the game is a 10-point game, he's going to get at least 8 to 9 minutes of the third quarter. So now it's about, can he get the fourth? And if you're a guy and you're a coach, and this guy is starting to climb back up the odds right to win MVP, because Kevin just said it before, he is the MVP of the NBA. If you just, the only reason why he's not a better number is because the number of games he missed. Let's be honest, folks, he could be minus money right now if he didn't miss so many games. If you're Nick Nurse and he's got 44 going into the fourth quarter, are you really going to hold him from a 50 burger? I don't think so. 49.5. K-Dub, guess what? I'm in there like swimwear. I'm taking it right now.
Yeah, I would also expect he gets it. So I bet Embiid over 11.5 first quarter points, JY. So he just made me look very smart. So I was going through the research. Do you know that this is his 32nd game? 14 of his 32 games have come against bottom 8 defenses. So on one end, it's like, oh, wow. But then who cares? Like, everybody plays the Spurs. Nobody does this. There's 24 points in the first quarter. Like, if he scores 50, JY, it's going to be like, well, of course he did. He played San Antonio. Like that. He's just having a spectacular season, man. He's having a spectacular season.
And I would say this, folks, if you want to play right now, if you think about it, his points prop just dropped to 47.5 on DraftKings. So here's how you play this. It may continue to drop until he checks in the game, right? So you may get it at 47.5. You may get it at 46.5. I may wait. You know, it's all going to depend on what happens. But you figure at some point he's going to check back into this game. I would say probably 8 minutes left to go in the quarter. He's going to give you kind of 8, 10 more points in the quarter because who on that team is checking him? You know, Wemby's too skinny. Collins sucks. You know, so he's going to get his.
Like, the weird thing I would almost say to that, and not spend too much time on this, but how many points can he score in the 6-7 minutes that he even gets in this quarter? You almost maybe just let the quarter roll, and then you can just bet him at half. But then again, I don't know. He might have 35 at the break because, he's touching the ball every single play. All right, Coach, let's get to your picks here, and then we can go and zoom out where necessary. The big game in the NBA, I think, is Boston-Dallas. What are you looking for in this game tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Drew Holiday over 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I think this is a spot where Drew is going to have to play. One, it's going to be a close game, right? It should be very competitive because they're going to need Drew on the defensive end of the floor as much or more than you need him on the offensive floor. So the only concern is, could Drew get into foul trouble? If he doesn't get into foul trouble, this could be a spot where he gets there. Drew Holiday, points, rebounds, assists, put it together over 24.5.
All right, we'll go back to the card in a minute. I do want to let people know there is some breaking NFL news. Offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals will become the new head coach for the Tennessee Titans, Brian Callahan. Adam Schefter first on this story, of course, of ESPN. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator from Cincy, to become the head coach now of the Tennessee Titans. Initial reaction? Callahan being the first name off of the board, I think is more of an indictment on the attractiveness of the Tennessee job than the caliber of coach that Brian Callahan is. It doesn't mean that he can't do good things in Tennessee, but they are going to have to be patient with him. I think there's a chance they ask Callahan to start Levis next season, and I don't expect that to be very fruitful. The Titans are probably going to be one of the longest odds on any sports book to win next year's Super Bowl. I expect it to be bottom 5 in Tennessee. Again, breaking news, Adam Schefter of ESPN. Brian Callahan,
the new head coach for the Tennessee Titans, formerly the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. Coach, let's get back into it here. Late night, Sacramento hosting Atlanta. No Trae Young. What do you look for in this game?
I don't look for the Hawks to win. I mean, Trae Young's not playing. DeJounte Murray, you might as well keep him on the West Coast because the Lakers are going to try and, kidnap him and bring him in to be part of the fold. So when you look at this game, I just look at an Atlanta Hawks team that's really going nowhere. One of the biggest disappointments, I would say, in the league so far. So I'm going to go with Light the Beam to cover the spread. But I'm going to go with Clint Capella to go over his rebound prop of 8.5. You look at the situation of who he's got to guard, right? He's got to go ahead, and he's got to guard Sabonis. So this is a spot where he should be able to get the rebounds, minus 135 shop around. He has gone over 10 of the last 15 games. And then versus head-to-head matchups, he's gone over the last 14 and 12 rebounds. Low spot here for Clint Capella. I think maybe you want to play double-double market. If you want to get more plus money, I don't want to play around with that. I'll just go Clint Capella over 8.5 rebounds tonight.
All right, no doubt. And JY Land, another number here. Phoenix hosting Chicago.
Yeah, listen, Kevin, you have a ticket on the Phoenix Suns, right? Am I not mistaken about that with Phoenix?
Oh, that is the trade happened, and I put admittedly, like $10 free bet. That was because too much of the Phoenix conversation was negative. Then I got angry that people turned it into positive. So no. A $10 free bet back in like July doesn't count.
Right. Well, I will say this. They are starting to play better. Here we go. Ready?
JY?
Ready?
JY?
If
oh my
they
gosh.
stay healthy.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something.
This big three is like the Clippers. If they stay healthy, they're gonna be there. If they're healthy, the Clippers and the Suns are better than the Nuggets. I'm taking the Suns minus a point versus the Chicago Bulls.
Okay. As far as the game goes, I played it over. I was interested in Chicago because it's the second leg of a back-to-back. But I do think Phoenix is rolling right now. And to me, the healthy version of the Suns in the regular season has the chance to have the best record in the league. Now, they don't have that chance anymore, right, obviously. But the record of when the big three is available can be very good. Pause. Big picture. I also think the Suns can be dangerous. I think their health is far more reliable than that of the Los Angeles Clippers. But it is very, very important that people understand this is exactly why I have pinned JY down on the Clippers, because what we will not do is get to April, and you've been listening, about 6 or 7 teams I could see winning the Western Conference. Even though I do think you give every team in the West respect other than the defending champs.
No, I like the Nuggets. I talked last year. I love the Nuggets. All right, listen, listen. Whoa, wait. Hey, give me the K-Dub. Give me the ISO here.
No, don't. I'm telling you right now, nobody will ever know what you like in college basketball. Never listen to JY. This is not his show, okay? First of all, on a Monday, guy can't even make the UNC breakdown. He shows up in basically UNC blue. All right?
Hey,
so you say whatever you got to say, but now I'm sitting up for it.
Hey, listen, man. I look like an older version of Carlton Banks with my little Vineyard Vines going on. Vineyard Vines, can I get a promo deal here? Because I'm rocking your gear.
Whose man is this?
Hey, listen, Kevin, you're right. I do like a lot of teams in the West. But you got to admit, the West playoffs is going to be far more interesting than the East, right? Let's call what it is. As much as I'm a Nick Homer, the East is a 3-team race. It really is. I can't, in my right mind, tell anybody that the Knicks, the Heat, the Magic, the Cavs, I don't see any of them making a run unless there is a major blockbuster trade in which they don't give up the farm. That guy's now on the market. But in the West, ready? Can Denver win it? Yes. Can the Clippers win it? Yes. Can Phoenix win it? Yes. Can LeBron drag those jabronis to the finish line if they get the right guy? Can Luka and Kyrie get hot for 2 months? Yes. So it's far more intriguing in the West than it is for the East. That being said, if everybody is fully healthy, I have to go with the Clippers and the Suns right now.
All right. And again, the second you find the sports book that will refund future bets on when a star player gets injured, I will also bet the LA Clippers. Until that exists, you have fun with that. Kansas, Cincinnati, JY. Jayhawks need it at home. What do you think here?
Boy, bro. Kansas gave up 91 points to West Virginia. I mean, the same West Virginia team that was only up by 4 against Monmouth at the break. So this Kansas team, I think they shot 58% from the floor and lost because they couldn't defend. Well, Bill Self's guys should be in a bad mood. I like them in this spot as a bounce-back spot, minus 8.5. I know Cincinnati's been competitive. Look at their track record. They've played pretty well so far since they've been, obviously, in the Big 12 this year. But this is too big of a spot for a Kansas team that could score. And if I'm Bill Self, they probably ran till they bled that next practice. They're going to be dialed in at Fall Allen. Give me the Jayhawks minus the points.
I worry, JY. This Cincinnati team has stepped up on the road. I will say this, though. You and I find ourselves in this situation again where you're on a college team and I'm on them in a different capacity. I really think Hunter Dickinson does have an excellent game here tonight. And a lot of the reason why is Kansas needs him to. Look, it's college basketball. Kansas is already in the tournament, right? Let's be honest here. They lose tonight against Cincinnati. What does it do? Maybe knocks them off a seed, drops them in the AP poll. Who cares? But Kansas, despite being 15-2, now 15-3, have not felt as dangerous. You look at KenPom, JY, what are they, 4th or 5th in terms of Big 12 teams on KenPom? So I certainly agree with the idea that this team needs a statement if it's available to them against Cincy.
Yeah, they really do. And that being said, I was lucky to go to a couple of games on Saturday. I will say this, watching them live, UConn, that defense, with clinging back, they are the best team in the country. They are the best team in the country, and I don't think and here's the other thing. God bless Dan Hurley, and God bless, who I saw earlier, Doug McDermott. Them two SOBs cry for every call, and if there's a tight game and you're going against McDermott or Hurley, good luck, because you're not getting a call. Best team in the country, UConn. Plus, Hurley knows how to work them refs.
Best bet time on the other side right here, SportsGrid.
The Lions were going to blow out the Rams, and in the first half I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game, and I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45, but I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Closing out Game Time Decisions. Appreciate Coach stopping by, as well as Joe Ranieri, Joe Madden, and Joe Lisi. We are going to close out Game Time Decisions with a best bet. That is in the college game, and it is Kansas's big man, Hunter Dickinson, over 31.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Admittedly, the assist category here is kind of necessary. We don't get points plus rebounds, but it doesn't scare me off. And if anything, it could help out. Dickinson had 5 assists in his last game. But this is about the points and the rebounds. On the rebound side of it here, Dickinson has now had 2 consecutive games without clearing that would-be prop of 10.5. The only other time that happened earlier this year, the first 2 games, and he followed that up by grabbing over 20 boards against the Kentucky Wildcats. Bounce back doing that area. And then at home, in a game that has, I think, these type of circumstances and energy and feel for Kansas, Dickinson will arise to the occasion, like he already has in both games that have been at home so far in Big 12 play, scoring 30 and 24 in those games. If you look at Dickinson this season, when this team is coming off of a loss, he is over 40 PRA in both of those games. I think maybe 39 and 40 in the 2 games. I think Dickinson steps up here, something like 25 and 15 truly against Cincinnati. They need him in this matchup, and I think he's going to have a very, very good game. Still coming up on on the NBA side that has not started just yet. Mavs plus the 2.5. I think with the second leg of a back-to-back for Boston on the road here, it is a challenging spot. With Luka and Kyrie, the Mavs are 7-3 straight up at home this season. Over 226.5 in the game between the Bulls and the Suns. And then we also have a LaMelo Ball prop starting soon here. Probably my favorite on tonight's NBA board, which is over 11.5 rebounds plus assists. LaMelo 10-4 on this prop before the injury, 2-2 since coming back. Last time out, this number was 15.5. They drop it to 11.5 because he's playing Minnesota. That is what we call value. I'm Kevin Walsh. It's Game Time Decisions. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.